picking up where we left off, now that you've got your collections defined, we kept saying something kind of awkward last time. We kept saying a restaurant document looks like, right? What we're really trying to say is each restaurant document has a name, an average cost, and a style, right? This should sound an awful lot like an object constructor to you guys. So we've talked about this a little bit before, but an object constructor is when you build instances from a blueprint. So basically what I'm trying to say here is if our restaurant blueprint looks like this, we're just saying, hey, every restaurant has to have a name, an average cost, and a style. And then we can add some additional information about saying like, well, a name has to be a string, an average cost has to be a number, a style has to be a string, that sort of thing. Well, the term that we are going to use for this is called a schema. So a schema is a blueprint for a document. Let me repeat that one more time. A schema is a blueprint for a document. A schema enforces a certain structure on the documents in your collection to basically guarantee that they all look a certain way. So let's dive right into it. We need to get a schema package installed. So we'll actually change to step number 4. So we'll say install schema package. And I'm going to install this, but I will be in the wiki. When I put all this in the wiki, I will put the links to these projects in there. So the one I like to use is this Meteor Collection 2 package. So I'll just come to here, and we need to install that in our project. Come down to the terminal. And we'll add that package. Cool. So we've got that installed now. So from here, what I'd like to do is I want to create the schema for each of our collections. And, oh, just one second. I'm going to grab the link for this so I can put it in the wiki. So now we want to create the schema for each of our collections. So let's go over here to our collections folder. And what were the 3 collections we had again? That's right, restaurant, dishes, and reviews. So I'll create a directory here, one called restaurants, one called dishes, and one called reviews. So you'll notice right here, I have now 3 folders inside the collections folder. So each collection that we have in our app gets its own separate folder. And from there, I want to create a JavaScript file for each one. So the first JavaScript file I'll create is called dishes collection.js. Then we'll create a restaurants collection.js. And then we'll make a reviews collection.js. All right, so what did I just do? For each of those collection folders, so each of the folders that we have underneath our list of collections, I just created a JavaScript file and I named it the name of our collection and then the word collection afterwards. That is not required. I could have called this x.js or something if I wanted to. But I'm going to name it this way, and you guys should name your collections this way so that it's easy for you to look up the file that you want to access, right? So this is really important. From here on out, whenever you want to change anything related to the dishes collection in code, you need to come to the dishescollection.js file. One second, let me get that phone. Okay. So from here, now that we've got these 3 different files created, let's go ahead and start making our schema for each of these files. So let's go update our list of tasks that we've been doing. So I said create the schema for each of our collections. We're still doing that. So we'll say like step 5A was to create a folder for each collection. And then step 5B was to create a like collection.js file in each folder. Excellent. So after we've got these 3 different JavaScript files, let's start off with just our restaurants collection file. So let's just get that open. And from here, I want to start using our schema. So something you'll notice, I'm going to go ahead and reference the documentation for this collection2 package. So all the stuff that I'm getting is right from this GitHub page from the documentation. So you can go to that page and do the same thing that I'm doing right now. So the first thing we want to do is define the actual collection that we're using. So in this case, we're using restaurants. So we want to create our normal Mongo collection for restaurants. So it's the normal code that we use. We just say collection, and we'll call them restaurants, just like that. Cool. Perfect. And now we want to define our schema. So to reiterate this, a schema is a blueprint for a document. So in this case, we are defining the restaurant schema, which will dictate what each restaurant document looks like. If that is still unclear to you, you should pause the video now and go talk to some other classmates to make sure that you're understanding this fully. So if we want to go make the schema, all we have to say is use this simple schema syntax. So right here, I will say var, we'll just say like restaurant schema equals, and we'll describe this syntax, new simple schema. Cool. So this is like the normal syntax that we'd use for helpers and events. We're just doing a function call, and then inside of that, we have a JSON object that's inlined. So I'll go add that step. 5C, we are going to create normal Mongo collection. Then 5D, create schema. So what did we say a restaurant looks like? Well, let's go back up here. We said a restaurant document looks like, has a name, average cost, and a style. So here we could just say name. And let's go to our documentation real quick from that GitHub page. You'll notice here, the way a simple schema works is you'll create the field that you want. So in this case, they're saying a book has a title field. Then you'll inline an object to it where you'll declare the type that you want to use. So I could say name, and we'll add an object here, say type, and a name is a string. Then what else did we want to add? We want to add an average cost, so I'll say avg cost. And the type for this is a number. And now we'll say style, which is a string. Excellent. So this is nice because we can declare what type each of these fields is. So AVG cost cannot be set equal to a string. It'll always have to be a number. And we can actually add additional rules on top of this type. We could also say, hey, an average cost could never be negative because that doesn't make any sense. So we could say the minimum amount it could be is 0. So if this is confusing you right now, you should stop the video, talk to some classmates, and look at this documentation right here and follow this book example. The syntax is a little funny, but all we're doing is we're just saying, what does each one of our restaurants look like? And in this case, a restaurant has a name, an AVG cost, and a style. We set the type on each of them, and we add a little bit of extra rules to the AVG cost, where we're saying the minimum value can only be 0. It cannot be negative. You should now go ahead and pick one of your collections. Don't do it for all of them yet, and try to build out your schema.